Hello and welcome back to Perspectives. On today's show, in the UK, the BBC is under the cosh, not only the Trump cosh, but many of the British people are also turning its back on the British state broadcaster. Why and what does this mean for the Sikh community here in the UK? In Canada, a new stamp is issued to honour the contribution of Sikh soldiers over the past, and also in Canada, uproar as Indian Minister Jai Shankar is welcomed to the G7. We have a statement from the Sikh Federation International and the 4 demands it's now making of the Carney government. In the US, the Sikh Coalition are now campaigning to recognise the Sikh genocide with a new resolution and need your help. All that and more on today's show. But joining me, as always, is our very own correspondent in Canada, James Cousineau. Good morning, James.
Well, it's a much-filled information session tonight, and we will, of course, get through to our comments at the end, so see if yours made it to the loop. But we won't take much time to get the intro going. Let's send it back to Angus, and we'll see you in a moment.
Indeed, lots to get through this morning. And James and I this morning, indeed, will be together bringing you our perspectives on the news affecting the Sikh community across the world. And we hopefully will have time for a few comments at the end of the show as well. So do stay tuned for that. Right, James, what are you going to start us off with this morning?
We are starting with something of a historical sense here in Canada. We are looking at the new stamp that has been launched by Canada Post. Even though they've been on this limited strike, there's been a lot of work going on behind the scenes, and that was, of course, to honor all of the many Sikhs over the years that have contributed to the Canadian Armed Forces and missions around the globe. As you can see on your screen right now, we have a picture of a new stamp that's been released. This commemorative stamp, of course, is at the grave of Private Buckham Singh, with a more modern Sikh in the foreground at the grave. So again, it is to honor all of those who have served in the military, both here domestically and overseas, but all in the name of keeping world peace and fighting for what is right. And we know that is exactly what Sikhs do. So let's take a quick look at the video released by Canada Post to celebrate this amazing stamp.
When I came out with my son and find the grave, and my son excitedly said, "Dad, it's here." He was like 6 years old at the time, and I was like, "Son, you realize you're the first Sikh to stand here in front of Buckham Singh in over 100 years." So it was just such a special moment, especially when we saw that big, large maple leaf. Growing up here, I never learned about the Sikh participation in the world wars, so it was so emotional to stand and actually look at a gravestone that's almost 100 years old. It was heartbreaking for Sikhs who tried to join up and were turned away. Basically, they were told, "Sorry, fellas, this is a white man's war, and we don't want brown or colonial people fighting Europeans, because then it will degrade the image of Europeans." A lot of the early Sikh pioneers living in Canada at the time were from ex-British Indian Army, and that's why they were so excited to join up. And there's accounts they were so heartbroken that many of them burned their medals. Well, it was just a really traumatic experience for them.
The interesting piece is that the Sikh community has had a long military tradition, and why they decided to serve, even though there was many barriers facing them here in Canada, the discrimination, disenfranchisement, and logically ask the question, why would they want to serve? And the service goes above citizenship. It's a concept of service, of duty, of honor, and those were the principles for which Sikh soldiers served for Canada and the Commonwealth.
They may not have been wanting, but to answer the call and to become part of the military, they were certainly needed, and that was something special. There was a real fascination and pride knowing that there was a continuity, that I'd be standing on the shoulders of these members that had gone before and that had already faced many challenges.
The 10 Sikh soldiers who fought for Canada, they really are pioneers not only just in having immigrated and contributed to Canada, but really pushing the boundaries of society at the time and racism. I can just close my eyes and imagine the scene in Fort Smith at the recruiting center where he says, I want to join Canada. And somebody looked him in the eye and said, son, yes, you can. There is hope for the inclusive country that we became. And I think the, the beginnings of that kind of sense of inclusion happened to these 10 Sikh soldiers. So having discovered his grave and knowing that he died without any family or without any Sikh religious rights, I thought that it would be a good idea at the time of remembrance just to have a gathering here in his grave and have Sikh prayers. And so we started that, and a few people showed up.
The very first time, I was the only soldier in uniform to stand here and learn more about Cousineau. It forged a compulsion to just create that connection for others and to really want to share the story. To have a stamp that now commemorates the Sikh contribution is just something that will crisscross the country and connect the country and share that story.
I hope it's a stepping stone for people to learn more about the story and the journey of not only just the Sikh community in Canada as a whole, but in fact the Sikh soldiers that fought and served for Canada as well. And so it's an opportunity to then also go deeper and remember all the soldiers that fought for Canada.
The Canada Post stamp is just such a special honor and a sense of pride, I think, for all Canadians, because it really gets a chance to show an aspect of Canadian history that most people may not be aware of, and celebrate our diversity, which is really our strength as a nation. You know, looking at that grave, it really brings home the fact that having been here in Canada for over 100 years, we really have contributed to the history of Canada with our blood, sweat, and tears, just like all the other immigrant communities. And looking at that grave and that big maple leaf really drives that home.
So as you can see, it's quite the honor that they have chosen this stamp, but I think that it goes even further. And I thought what enjoyment I would get of getting a stack of envelopes and using that stamp to send letters of complaint direct to Narendra Modi. Maybe that's just my twisted sense of humor, but what an honor. I think that it is long overdue, and I also believe that it's going to help not only with the Sikh community, but with other communities of minority background who have served within distinction and honor in the Canadian military, both at home and overseas. So again, we remember all of the soldiers, past and present, because without them we would have no future here in Canada. So again, just honoring those who have served. Now, on to something a bit more modern, and that is the story of Donald Trump and the BBC News. And I know, hold on to your chairs there, ladies and gentlemen. I am actually in complete agreement with Donald Trump on this. I actually agree that he has to hold the BBC accountable, and you might be asking why. Well, this starts out with a panorama documentary, which is a flagship program on the BBC. And essentially what has happened is that prior to the 2024 election, they had spliced together some video in different contexts. Now, the parts that were stated we'll go over in a moment, but he is now declaring that he's going to potentially and probably launch a $1 billion lawsuit. I think that's a bit excessive, but it drives home the point that they intentionally spliced some footage to misrepresent what he had said on January the 6th. Now, this is very important because it pulls the whole speech out of context by putting together two clips that were actually between 56 and 60 minutes apart within the actual speech that he said, and therefore giving it total different meaning and essentially really changing the history of what had truly happened. Now, I'm going to just jump ahead a bit here. Now, in the panorama edit, okay, in separate parts of the speech, he said, we're going to go down to the Capitol and we're going to cheer on the brave senators and congressmen and women. Okay, now, much different timeline, he was making other statements about fighting and about fight for the rights, fight for democracy, and so on and so forth. But what happened is that they turned around and spliced it together so it appeared that Donald Trump was saying, we're going to walk down to the Capitol, I'll be there with you, and we fight like hell. So this gives you a completely different context as to what Trump was saying in that speech and in that moment. Again, it really brings into question the legitimacy and the veracity of the claims of Trump and others that it's all fake media, that the fake media is out to get him or to change and manipulate different facts of history. This is essential that all broadcasters are held to a high level of ethics and responsible reporting. This failed miserably. This was what many are looking at as an intentional misrepresentation of what he said. So here we have just a follow-up on what he says about the lawsuit to hold the BBC responsible. And this is just a quick clip, so we'll come right back to it.
They defrauded the public, and they've admitted it, and they're top echelon. And this is one of our great allies. Yeah, this is supposedly a great ally. BBC and the government has a chunk of that one, I guess. But that's a pretty sad event. They actually changed my January 6th speech, which was a beautiful speech, which was a very calming speech, and they made it sound radical. And they actually changed it. And what they did was rather incredible. They showed me the results later on, the results of what they did, how they butchered it up. But it was very dishonest, and the head man quit, and a lot of the other people.
We're actually going to play it. But tonight you are saying to our viewers that you will go forward and file a defamation lawsuit against the BBC.
Well, I think I have an obligation to do it because you can't allow people to do that.
So as you can see, he's just very clear that, it's no surprise Donald Trump and lawsuits. He really loves them. But at the end of the day, I have to support this. I support him. I support his actions to hold them accountable. This is calling into question the real mainstream media, as well as channels like this here at Satledge TV. We work our butts off to bring you the truth, to report on the stories, and to bring culturally relevant information forward. We work to bring you the headlines. We work on different stories, and that is something that Angus and I take pride in. As the BBC doing what they've done, it calls into question when people are in disagreement with what's being said. Now they will pigeonhole us as, oh, they're fake news. Oh, they are twisting the facts. Oh, they're making up lies. And that is not what we need. We try to be as accurate as we can. We do a lot of research. And this here is only giving fuel to the fire of those who are claiming that it's fake media when they don't agree with media, instead of saying that's a different perspective, or maybe there's, truth here that I've overlooked. Now they just totally will brush it aside. And that not only impacts us here at Satledge TV, but it also gives credibility to stations that are being controlled by the Hindutva media. Now, when you look at what the RSS, RAW, and the India government is doing when it comes to manipulation and propaganda spreading, they take that and they manipulate it. They use logos of what are considered credible sources of news. They use the Fox logos, CNN, so on and so forth. And this will push more people to believe certain things that are coming out of them as well, or to brush aside what's actual fact on the real CNN or the real Fox News or whatever. And I use those terms loosely. But again, credible journalism is something that we need to hold dear, we need to hang on to, and we have to support for the simple fact that it holds democracies to account. It holds politicians to account. And when you see blatant manipulation of the facts and the information, such as what we've seen here at the BBC, I again have to agree with Donald Trump that there needs to be some accountability. The legal representation for Donald Trump in the president's office has sent the BBC a letter insisting that they make a full retraction, a public apology, and they compensate him monetarily for the damage in which they have caused as a result of this story. So we'll keep an eye on this, but I thought that it was very important to bring this story forward and to see how it can damage the path forward for other news organizations, especially independent news gathering and journalists like Angus and myself, and how this could actually damage what is already an uphill battle for us to gain audience and to gain that support and trust that we worked so hard to build, Angus.
Yeah, I find this story actually deeply sad because the BBC has obviously been there for my entire life. It has always stood as it is the state broadcaster of the United Kingdom, and it has a fantastic global reputation. It is admired, respected, and viewed by people literally all over the world, and has been for decades, well into the last century. And unfortunately, what it has demonstrated over the last at least 10 years, maybe even longer, has been an absolute masterclass in how to destroy one of the most important, significant pieces of British heritage almost in just a matter of a few years. Because what's happened, and Donald Trump is very symptomatic of what's happened with the BBC. The BBC in the UK it's funded by us, the taxpayers. We actually have to pay a license fee every year, and it's quite expensive. It's over $200 every year. When you start to compare that to Netflix and and these other services, streaming services, it's starting to look a bit expensive. So people are thinking, is it really worth paying? But we are literally under legal obligation to pay it. We have to pay it. There is no choice. But there is a choice if you then say, I no longer watch live TV, and you have to unplug all sorts of things. It's really difficult, but you can actually stop paying your license fee legally, but they make it very hard for you. Now, as a result of policies within the BBC over the last 10 plus years, the BBC has moved further and further to the left wing of politics. It has been quite openly now been accused of being biased and prejudiced towards the left wing. And since Donald Trump appeared, it has been deeply and overtly anti-Trump. And there's this sort of joke going around. It's called TDS, whatever it's called, Trump derangement syndrome.
Derangement syndrome or something, yeah.
So the BBC has actually become infected by TDS. It's mad. Almost every article it's ever covered since the arrival of Donald Trump, even with his first term, has always had this anti-Trump bias. This does actually, ironically, reflect much of the European media, which has always been anti-Trump and on the whole generally left-wing. Yeah. Our media here in the UK has, generally speaking, been, I would say, more biased towards the left-wing, but particularly our state broadcaster. Our state broadcaster is supposed to be impartial. It has built its reputation over knocking on a century now, nearly, for being the impartial source of news. The older generation absolutely believe every single word the BBC says because that's what they've been brought up on, and I'm almost part of that. The young generation, though, don't watch the BBC. Why? Because they know it's nonsense. They know it has an agenda. The BBC has had an agenda for the last 10 plus years to bias its politics and particularly its news reporting. Gaza is another prime example of this. A bit of background. Unfortunately, we didn't really have time to give more detail about this. But this all stemmed from a consultant was brought in to review its news and highlight any prejudices. And this person wrote a report where this person brought out this faked speech of Trump. But he also brought out coverage of Gaza. The BBC has also been heavily accused of being anti-Semitic. Of all its reporting of the Gaza-Israeli conflict, it's always been, every time it's mentioned Israel, it's referred to genocide. It's always had a very anti-Israel, pro-Gaza, pro-Palestinian bent on the news. All its journalists and all its reporting have actually been pro-Gaza, anti-Israel. It's been outrageously unimpartial. I mean, it's been an embarrassment. But that is very symptomatic of the way the BBC has covered the news over the last several years. This, as a result, has turned the British people, I would say probably the majority of British people, against the BBC. The BBC is now losing licence payers. It is hemorrhaging licence payers. It lost something like 2 million licence payers over the last year or two. People are now saying, we don't want this. The BBC is not what it used to be. The BBC has just become a left-wing tool. It's become a weapon to promote left-wing politics. It's anti-Israel. It's clearly anti-Trump, etc., etc. It was actually deeply anti-Brexit as another prime example. That's another one where, again, it started hemorrhaging licence payers because, again, it nailed its colours to one single mast. It wasn't impartial in the Brexit debate. It wasn't impartial about Trump. It wasn't impartial about Israel, etc., etc. So this is the reason now that the British people are turning against the BBC. Interesting that the BBC then picked on Trump. What a mistake that was, mate. Of all people on this planet to turn your propaganda against, Trump was not the guy because Trump is litigious. Now, the BBC have come out fighting, and this again, this is symptomatic of why the BBC is finished. I predict this is the beginning of the end for the BBC. It's the writing's been on the wall for some time, but the BBC have. This piece of propaganda it produced was absolutely outrageous. I cannot stress how significant what the BBC did. The left wing and the BBC are saying, oh, it was an error of judgment. It was not an error of judgment. It was a deliberate splicing of two different parts of a speech to create a complete and utter, it was a Goebbels-esque piece of propaganda. It was something that Goebbels would have put together in the Second World War. That's how significantly bad it was. It was not an error of judgment. It was a deliberate, designed piece of propaganda, putting two pieces of speech together to create something completely different that Trump did not say. Again, it renders me speechless that the BBC of all outlets would do this. You'd expect it from a YouTube channel, from a cheap back bedroom YouTube channel, not the state broadcaster of the UK. It was, again, I can't stress how significant it was. Now, why does this matter? It matters, of course, because this is the British state broadcaster, and it has been there for as long as our Queen was there, and longer. It's, when we lost the Queen last year, it left many of us almost bereft because she was like our grandmother figure. This is the same with the BBC. The BBC has always been there. It's always been our bastion of impartiality. It is one of our great pillars of what represented Great Britain. And now that is fallen. It has fallen to the politics of wokeism of the left wing. It's tragic to see. And why does this matter so much to our Sikh community? It matters massively because one thing that the BBC did very well was represent our ethnic minorities. I've shown countless reports over the last year or two about Sikh issues, whether it was Jagtar Singh Johal, whether it was the 1984 Operation Blue Star and the fallout of that, the genocides, etc. They've been BBC reports. The BBC reporters were on the scene during 1984, etc. So it covers Sikh issues. It shows parliamentary debates about Sikh issues, transnational oppression, Avtar Singh Kandar, etc. It's always been there, and it has been a voice for the Sikh people. But what the BBC have done terribly, terribly wrong, it's just over-egged the pudding, as the English phrase. It's overdone it. What it's done is because it has become so diverse, and its DEI policy in the BBC is just so overtly overdoing it, that it has turned normal, well, not even right-wing, it's turned white people in the UK against ethnic minorities because they are seeing the state broadcaster actually preferring to recruit people from ethnic backgrounds over white people. There's this positive discrimination. Now, if you did this right, there would be a balanced recruitment based on merit. In other words, you recruit the right person for the job. It doesn't matter what colour they are, what ethnicity they are. The BBC, though, when they recruited people, all their adverts were, we will always prefer candidates from ethnic backgrounds. Okay, fine. But the trouble is that all that's done is push the nose out of joint. It's pushed the backs up, choose your phrase, whatever. But basically, it's upset white people, the 80% majority of white people in the UK saying, well, hang on a second. Yeah, we don't have an issue with ethnic minorities appearing on our screens. But now you're actively recruiting and you're refusing. And this was literally, you'll see adverts will say, basically, to read between the lines, we will not recruit white people. We will only recruit people from ethnic minorities. So likewise, you can see why people are starting to turn against the BBC. So they've overdone it. And likewise, this in turn, ironically, has now pushed more white people against ethnic minorities because, like the immigration debate, it's all part of the same debate. They've overdone it. They've overcompensated to try and overrepresent ethnic minorities, which in turn has produced a counterproductive effect. And it's actually turning people more racist. And again, this is the irony of this whole woke agenda, this BLM agenda that was linked into this, is all it's done, it's generated racism. It hasn't reduced racism, it's generated. It's had completely the opposite effect. And I just find it deeply sad. Now, we're running out of time, Jez, because I'm going to have to shut up now, and I've ranted a bit, because it's a big story, this, unfortunately. So anyway, this story is no doubt will rumble on. Trump, it's symbolic. $1 billion, blah, blah, blah. It's a symbolic thing. He is absolutely right to do this. But what he's done is just, as I say, it's the beginning of the end of the BBC. It's very tragic, but there you go. The stamp story, just a quick side issue on this one. I saw this and I was really upset because I saw it on social media. Great story, thinking fantastic. It was posted up by a right-wing activist who said, this is outrageous. We had, whatever it was, 600,000 Canadian troops, white Canadian troops fighting in 2 world wars. Why are we honouring? There were only 10 Sikh troops, was it 10 or 12? This is outrageous. And I couldn't resist. I waded in and say, look, just get real, mate. This is a stamp. I think we can honour, in just our own small way, at least honour the contribution that the Sikhs have done in 2 world wars, who actually gave over 80,000 lives to our freedom. I think we can just give them just this little bit. Is it really too much to expect? It's just a stamp. But it's significant, it at least honours the memory. So anyway, but I was quite upset to see that right-wing idiots, trying to tear this, what actually is a wonderful thing, is a wonderful tribute. Trying to say, well, what about the white people? As I said in that argument online, I said, we spend every year, every single Remembrance Day respecting the white soldiers. I think we can at least spare a stamp for our Sikh soldiers, etc. So there you go, James, a bit of a rant.
Absolutely. And when people are spouting off saying 800,000, 600,000, whatever they want to say when it comes to the Caucasian numbers, what they're not looking at is that those 10 were representative of the First World War. And I believe it was the Canadian Expeditionary Forces in Europe. They're not taking into account that when you combine all of the Sikhs who have served World War I, World War II, and other things, that you're looking over 250,000 Sikhs who have given their lives or at least made that sacrifice to serve our nation. So again, that's something that they're not looking at either. They're just getting that number 10 from the First World War in their head, and that's what gets stuck with them. But those were the 10 pioneers that allowed the future of the Sikh military service for Canada and for the British. So again, I won't go on too far on that because we have lots to cover still, Angus.
Indeed we do. Loads to get through, and I might have to drop 1 or 2 stories because we are running out of time. But that BBC story is an important story, particularly for our Sikh community, because I say that it is their voice. It is their democratic and news voice to get their issues out. So again, deeply sad. Right, okay, James, I'm going to move on now to, I'm just going to go back to the university story. Punjab University in Chandigarh, we reported yesterday, or a couple of days ago, the protests that were being generated. I think this is a story that really could go big places, because as I said a few days ago, student protests literally have the potential to bring down governments. The students, as I said, have less to lose. They, unlike me and James, they don't have, on the whole, they don't have mortgages, families, whatever. The state has less control of them, so they can actually be more vocal. They can be more passionate. They can actually get out there in the streets and cause genuine, real change, political change, seismic change. As I said, they have brought governments down in the 20th century. So this is why this protest at Chandigarh, at Punjab University, really has big potential, because what it's doing It's a proxy story for the Punjab state against the Indian state, against central control, against Delhi. It is this small state of Punjab and essentially primarily the Sikh people standing up against, once again, state control, state oppression driven by the RSS. So again, it is an allegory in many ways for that bigger battle that's been ongoing since 1947. Now, just to remind people what's going on at Chandigarh. A lot of the actual demands that are being made. This is just a quick list. I'll just remind people of what the demands are that the students are demanding. The demand that the university restore its originally elected governing body. Specifically, this was the 91-member Senate, rather than accept this new restructured model announced by the Ministry of Education, which is replacing it by 31 effectively nominated by the Chancellor, which in turn effectively be nominated by the RSS. So the whole governing management committee, the Senate as it's called at the university, is being replaced from being primarily elected by the students and alumni, now by and nominated by central government, effectively by the RSS. So they're saying we want our old system back. Secondly, they insist that the notification issued by the centre reversing that decision of 28th of October to that, when the centre said, OK, no, we'll back off, we'll suspend it. But they're saying now that notification is insufficient and they want a new one putting out, fully cancelling it. In other words, they want a formal announcement of the Senate elections under the old structure. They're also pressing for democratic autonomy of the university, that's the right of students, alumni and the faculty, to elect the Senate and the syndicate. The syndicate is the executive level of the Senate, rather than a structure imposed by external agency. And finally, and this is an important one, they opposed rules limiting protests. For example, this was when the university brought in a few weeks ago a new demand saying that if you want to be a student at the university, it is conditional upon that you agree and sign an affidavit that says that you will not protest at the university unless you have our permission, and we will tell you where and when you are able to protest. Likewise, you are not allowed outsiders to join in the protest. It can only be students within the university. So again, there's hugely restrictive outside control over any protest. Obviously, knowing what was coming, this new restructuring was coming. So the students, again, this fourth demand is that they want these rules completely removing and their right to protest, including outsiders, their right to protest within the campus. So those are the demands. Now, interestingly, what has happened, of course, there was a big rally on Monday. And amongst many of the voices, there's been a lot of gatherings around the university campus. But there's one guy particularly who's really shown his true mettle in this battle against state control and the RSS. There's a guy called Ashmeet Singh. Now, he's become a bit of a focal point. He's become very vocal. He's a young activist, he's a young lad. He's basically stood up and he's become one of these focal points, one of these great voices of the student movement. Now, I've noticed on social media, a lot of people, particularly from the Sikh community, saying, look, please be careful. We know what the Indian state is capable of. We've seen it in the past. They will literally murder people, political dissenters, people they don't like. We've seen it. Hardeep Singh Jar. They'll even go to Canada to murder people they don't like. So if you're standing up in the university in Chandigarh, please watch yourself. It is likely, that they will come for you, that the goons in their unmarked vans will bundle you into the back of a van. Or worse, that it is very likely that something quite nasty could happen to this young man, this Ashmeet Singh. And Ashmeet himself, because he's been so vocal and so articulate, basically articulating these arguments and forming the nucleus of this fight back against the RSS control of the university, he has become a target, but he's also earned widespread respect and support from teachers, students and the general public, because he's actually now starting to become a rallying point from people even outside of Punjab. In other states, people are coming from outside into Punjab to help him and help support this protest, this student movement. Now, a warning has been basically issued by the people of not just Punjab, but particularly the university. But a warning's been issued to the government to the government of India. And it basically says, if any physical or psychological harm comes to Ashmeet Singh, whether by mob attack, medical tampering, staged accident, or assault by persons in uniform or plain clothes, the government will bear full responsibility for that harm. There are reports now circulating suggesting the possibility of such actions. Failure to protect him will be seen as direct negligence or complicity for which the state will be held accountable. Now, this is basically, it's a public warning, and I'll reiterate this warning to the Indian state. If you harm this guy, if you get RAW involved or any operatives operating under the surface and you take this guy out, if you harm him in any way, God help you, because this, again, is what brings governments down. He is a figurehead. You make a martyr of him, I can absolutely assure you, you will regret it. This isn't a warning coming from me. This is a warning coming from history, because all you will do, you will make a martyr of him, and he will then become an even more powerful focal point, like the gentleman behind me. This gentleman behind me became the focal point of the Khalistan movement, and the Indian state's murder of Bhindranwale in I have to say, the most heroic last stand that he held in 1984. That form the seeds, the powerful seeds of the Khalistan movement. If this young lad, Ashmeet Singh, comes to harm, I can absolutely guarantee that will trigger enormous momentum. Not just for the university, not just for the fight back against RSS oppression in Punjab. It will absolutely, I will guarantee, it really will accelerate the movement for Khalistan, James. So, as I say, this is a warning coming out of the Punjab. We do know that his life is in potential danger for having the courage to stand up against this state oppression, having the courage to call out what is going on at the university. This is not a small story, this is a bigger story. And if harm comes to him, as I said, James, God help the Indian state, they will regret it.
Absolutely. And I mean, even recent history dictates that it would martyr the person. It would create a backlash. It would create a media firestorm at the very least. And you can look at Charlie Kirk in the US. And regardless as to whether you agreed with his politics, with his statements, with his online presence, the point is that through his death, that movement gained so much more momentum and so much more support that it really is a clear example of what could happen there. So again, our respect to it was Ashmeet Singh, and he is showing a lot of bravery in the face of potential risk by speaking out and being a leader. But again, we have to give him utmost respect for him believing in his soul and acting for what he believes is right, Angus.
Indeed, and we extend our own support to the guys out there at Chandigarh. Good luck, guys. Keep it going. Do not give in on this, but for heaven's sake, please be careful. We do know what the Indian state is capable of, so do stay safe. But keep it democratic, keep it peaceful. Most of all, keep it peaceful. Don't gift the state the reason to come after you. So, anyway, James, let's move on now, and I'm just going to quickly cover another story here. And this again is over in your neck of the woods. We have got the G7 meeting happening very shortly, and we do know that Jaishankar, the Indian Foreign Affairs Minister, has been invited to join the delegations in Canada for this G7 meeting. And as a result, unsurprisingly, the Sikh Federation International, in particular the Canadian arm of it, have issued a statement yesterday or a couple of days ago about this, saying, "Look, come on, this is really is an affront to not just Canadian Sikhs but to global Sikhs to welcome the Foreign Minister of India, after we do know that India was guilty of murdering Hardeep Singh Nijjar as a Canadian citizen on our own soil, and yet you're shaking hands with the Foreign Minister." Anyway. So just to quickly run through the statement, the first page of the statement, again, it's just reiterating the background, the context of what we know. Firstly, of course, Sikhs across Canada are deeply concerned, unsurprisingly, primarily because of Shahid Bhai Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who we do know that Justin Trudeau stood up in Parliament and directly and openly accused the Indian government, the Modi administration, of being behind that extrajudicial killing through their proxy killers. And the next page then talks about how the fact that CSIS and even parliamentary committees have actually highlighted evidence, and there have been whole commissions, James, as you've covered, who've actually highlighted the surveillance, the influence, the manipulation, the infiltration of Indian propaganda, media, the RSS, the Hindutva forces within Canadian politics themselves. So again, why are we welcoming and shaking hands with the minister from India of the nation that is actually has been been shown by our own intelligence services, and indeed our own commission have highlighted, they are influencing illegally our own political landscape. So again, that's highlighting that issue. And then it talks about, of course, the Bishnoi gang. Again, James, you covered this story. We do know that transnational oppression against the Sikh community in Canada has been undertaken by proxy killers, proxy criminal gangs, of course, the Bishnoi gang, which has now been officially declared as a terrorist organisation as a result of their activities, their political activities, not just their criminal activities, but is now taken a political element to it. Of course, that we do know they are strongly anti-Khalistani, the Bishnoi gang. We do know that they are heavily involved in all sorts of criminal activity, but with this political element, which is why now they've been designated a terrorist organisation. So again, the statement highlights the fact that India is using these gangs, a part of the Indian diaspora, the Hindu diaspora particularly in Canada, to undertake their illegal operations. And then finally,
that's right,
there are 4 demands that they make. Commit to establishing an independent public inquiry, of course, the Hardeep Singh Nijjar murder. Ensure the completion of the study by the Standing Committee on Public Safety regarding electoral interference. And again, this comes back to what we were talking about earlier, about how the Hindutva forces have been deliberately influencing the political landscape. And so the demand is you've got to complete the study and highlight exactly what this infiltration interference has been. And ensure Parliament's Subcommittee on International Human Rights conducts a comprehensive study on the situation in India. In other words, you've got to actually uncover and prove what's going on in India. These human rights abuses, they're all well known and well documented. You've got to highlight the fact and inform your own Parliament in Canada and indeed the Canadian public. This is what India is guilty of. So why, again, are we shaking hands with their foreign minister and inviting them to the G7? And finally, make any prospective engagement or trade talks with India contingent on investigations over the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. And likewise, I'd just add to that, and contingent upon changing your attitude towards human rights. So there you go, James. That is, again, all very predictable, but a totally justified statement from the Sikh Federation in Canada, basically saying, why are we shaking hands with Minister Jai Shankar when we know full well that his country were behind the murder of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil, James?
Absolutely. And the recent evidence that's come out from the security agencies and the Five Eyes stating that they had intercepted phone calls between, certain individuals and other members of the India government that pertained to the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar as well as others. Of course, this gives us even more reason to question why they are opening their arms to somebody who is really an enemy of Canada when it comes to our sovereignty, respecting our rule of law, and protecting our own citizens, regardless as to where they may have come from when they're on this soil, whether they are citizens of Canada or they are guests of our great nation. And we welcome guests, we protect our guests, and we are hospitable to our guests. And even more reason why India should be held to account, because no matter who you are, if you are on Canadian soil, you deserve every bit of protection as anybody else.
Absolutely right. Couldn't put it better myself, James. And I'm just going to quickly, just before I wrap up my stories, I'm just going to highlight there is a movement in the US. Again, it's by the Sikh Coalition, this great lobbying organisation on behalf of the Sikh community in the US. They are calling for the recognition of the 1984 genocide more officially. There is a new resolution going through Congress, or being proposed to Congress. It is called the Sikh Genocide Resolution. Of course, unsurprisingly, this is an attempt to try and get Congress to officially recognise what happened in 1984, in November 1984, post the murder or the killing of Indira Gandhi. As vengeance for Operation Blue Star. They want the genocide to be officially recognised by the US. It has been officially recognised by a couple of states in the US, but I think this is a move to try and get it accepted, acknowledged, and publicly labelled as a genocide by the whole of the United States. So there is a resolution going through, and the Sikh Coalition is urging the Sangat to get together. Please help push this bill through. And there is, let me have a look. Here we go. Yes, so no matter where you live, you can take action today. Again, this is all about the grassroots mobilisation. I talk about this regularly. Grassroots lobbying, grassroots efforts. Each one of you individually can make a difference. This is such a myth saying, I'm only one voice, I'll never make a difference. Yes, you can, because all you need to do is just keep keep signing these things, keep joining the protest. Doesn't matter how small, they all mount up, they all build momentum, they help build momentum to bring about genuine real change. And how many examples have we given where real change, real policy, legal change, legislative change, political change has been brought about just through simple lobbying like this? So please do have a look at the Sikh Coalition's website. They've got links to this form to fill in that adds your name, your details to support this bill going through Congress to recognise the Sikh genocide. So again, this is on behalf of the Sikh Coalition. Please go on their website, have a look, get it signed. I think you need to fill in a few details, etc. But more importantly, if this goes through, and hopefully when it goes through, it will therefore officially across the US Congress acknowledge the suffering and loss endured by Sikhs during and after 1984. Of course, it brings in a whole raft of issues in amongst that whole definition of genocide. So, James, as I say, and it's appealed to, if you're a US citizen, please get online, get to the Sikh Coalition's website and get your signature on this thing.
Absolutely. And I mean, every movement in history has started with one voice, and that one voice speaking out gathers more voices. And the next thing you know, you've got a whole chorus singing along to a beautiful song. So,
Indeed, you do.
You know, just an analogy there, right?
Absolutely right. Great analogy. And on that note, let's move on to our comments column. And again, sadly, we have to rush through these. Some great comments. So thank you to all our audience for all the comments you brought to us under our videos. And we'll start off today with Case Singh. Yes, this is, again, sadly, it comes back to the genocide. How sad that we have to keep mentioning this word genocide, but it's an inherent part of Sikh history, why it must never be forgotten and certainly acknowledged publicly. India murdered 200,000 plus Sikhs in a well-planned genocide. The world ignored the event. Well, all I would say is it's not genocide singular, it's genocide plural. Genocides, there have been several genocides, certainly since 1947, not least partition itself. That itself was a genocide. And it's just tragic that there is more than one genocide that we can name, James.
Absolutely. And the tragedy is that so many people do see it as a singular. They don't see how many times history's repeated itself. And at the end of the day, it was the Sikhs who were innocent and lost their lives as a result of these barbaric type policies.
Right, absolutely. And Stay Safe sends out a warning. And again, this actually just reiterates what we've just been talking about young Ashmeet Singh. Watch out for RSS disguised as Sikhs. Yes, the fake Sikhs, we've again covered this several times, is that please be careful, because we do know that the RSS Hindutva, they do have Sikhs, fake Sikhs, as we've sort of seen have sort of adopted the name. These guys who wear turbans, but actually they're not genuine Sikh followers, they're not Sikhi followers. They're just basically, they're puppets. They are the voices of the RSS, and they deliberately are recruited to infiltrate various organisations, whether it is the SGPC or whatever, but particularly academia, and they will be amongst you in that student protest. So please do be careful. And Stay Safe's warning says that you indeed highlighted on your own channel that with RSS members' pictures who disguise themselves as Sikhs, they're aiming for colleges and educational centres. Be aware, there are agents in disguise. Yes, we do know this, James. They are dangerous, and I'm sure, I have no doubt that the guys on the ground at Chandigarh will be fully aware of this. But as I say, please do be careful.
Yeah, and something that we've talked about before are these individuals that want to, basically they are acting out false flag events and trying to incite more, whether it's action in a negative way or otherwise. They are there for nefarious reasons.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point, James. They are essentially acting as agents provocateurs is the term. Basically, they are there to try and deliberately whip up violence. Because what the Indian state wants is for these protests to turn violent. If they do that then justifies them bringing in the army, bringing out live ammunition, etc., and people start dying. Do not give them that ability. Keep the demonstrations peaceful, keep it happy, enthusiastic, obviously keep them powerfully motivated and passionate, but do not let these agents of Hindutva whip you up into violence, because that will be one of their methods. They will be trying to whip up the violence, trying to make these protests turn violent. So do not succumb to that temptation. Right, Killer 3. Thank you, Killer 3, for your comment. This was Killer 3 has been quite a regular on our comments columns, and his comments, I have to say, they always flirt with Critics Corner, but they're not Critics Corner because they are genuine. I think they are genuinely felt comments. And talking about the university, Killer's comment here, I thought this is interesting. This is why we remain a backwards community. The university isn't one of the oldest, as stated in the video. It's a new university that was created. It's also very low in terms of ranking in India. The reason they need replacing it is they've let the university drop in academic metrics, and you lay the blame at the hands of the sort of, let's say, the elite of the Sikh community, what you call the upper caste. I'd never call them upper caste. Sikhs very definitely do not have a caste system. They have a social hierarchy like anybody. We have a class system here in the UK. It's normal amongst every society on the planet. It's just human nature, but there is not a caste system. So I'll pick you up on that. But what you're saying is that let's say that the elite of the Sikh community are responsible for basically destroying or bringing down the university in terms of its abilities, its capabilities, and its rankings. I thought, okay, and you say they're not even in the top 20 when once they're in the top 10. They're saying everything becomes political before anyone with a brain even looks into the matter. So I thought, okay, gosh, am I really wrong about this? Have I really misread the situation? Maybe there is a genuine reason that it does need change at university. Maybe the university is falling down the rankings, that something's going wrong. Well, I did a little bit of research, and here you go. Here we go. Right, this is a list of the oldest universities in India. Now, Killer, one of your accusations was that it's not one of the oldest Punjab universities; it's actually one of the newest. Well, I had a look, and okay, yes, these are the oldest universities in India. Back into the early, well, it's basically the middle of the 19th century, 1857, 1875. But look at number 6. Punjab University, 1882. There you go. It's the 6th oldest out of a list of... That's just the first page. There's loads and loads of universities in India. And I think being the 6th oldest, I think probably justifies my claim that it is one of the oldest in India. So I have to say, I'm sorry, Killer. I would say I've hopefully won that point. Please let me know if you disagree with that. Now, the other accusation is, where is it? I don't want to just show up something else here. The other accusation is it's slipping down the rankings. Well, let me just highlight this. Again, I looked at the rankings. This is the Times Higher Education. This is actually, I have to say, one of the most respected educational bodies, commenters, let's say, that assesses rankings of universities, schools, etc. around the world. This is the Times Best Colleges in India 2025. So this is up to date. Where does Punjab University sit? Well, you said it's fallen down below the 20th. Well, I hate to disappoint you, mate, but Punjab University is 9th equal. Now, in this list, it appears quite far down because all the 9th equals are put in alphabetical order. But basically, it is sitting here at 9th equal, Punjab University. So it still is in the top 10. So I'm sorry, Killer, to disappoint you. But ultimately, that is your prerogative to try and make these comments. I do appreciate your comment. But unfortunately, hopefully the facts speak for themselves, James.
Absolutely. And of course, numbers can be manipulated depending on the source. And again, is he finding somewhere that numbers are being falsely reported in order to give credence to the other side of this debate? So that's quite possible as well, that he's found somewhere that's putting out those false numbers with a certain agenda.
Indeed, and I totally believe those statements, because I say that organisation is what we here in the UK, for example, use for assessing our own universities and schools. It is highly, deeply respected, and that really is a genuine source of the truth, or at least as close to truth as you're going to get. Right. Anyway, next section, Ragveer Singh. Freedom is the only solution. Khalistan Zindabad, absolutely. But then Bob Singh, I found this quite sad. Bob Singh came in with this comment. Gulami. Now I need to translate this. Again, I had to go on to Google Translate. Gulami, and please, our audience will correct me if I've got these translations wrong, but basically this is a list of quite sad things about the sad history of Punjab. Gulami, I believe, means slavery. Katliam, again, excuse the pronunciation, means genocide, massacres. And again, his comment, if I interpret it correctly, is all about the pride, the honour of Punjab, its self-respect, its honour. This is what matters. But we have a terrible history of slavery, genocides, etc., etc. In other words, again, if I've interpreted this comment correctly, it's almost like a cry for help, saying, look what's happened to our state, our great honourable state of Punjab that we are so proud of. We have been subjected to the most terrible things. What future do we have? Stay Safe comes back and says, look, it's okay, brother. We will get justice. We will get justice about this. And I have to reiterate Stay Safe's point here, is that don't worry. Do not lose heart. Do not lose faith. And it reminds me, ages ago, another comment came in. It was a despairing comment saying, what chance have we got? An enormous chance. The Khalistan movement is gaining a huge amount of momentum. It is winning. It is winning the fight democratically, peacefully, and that is why it is winning. Khalistan is going to happen. When Khalistan is established, all these sorts of things, there will be at least some level of justice. But more importantly, is that these things will not happen again in the future because Khalistan represents all the wonderful things that we talk about. And that is the only way that the Sikh people can secure their future safe from these future attacks from the Indian state. We always talk about the danger from the Indian state, the persecution that the Sikh people suffer from, not just in Punjab, but of course across the diaspora now through transnational oppression. Khalistan is the only solution to that. But don't worry, do not lose heart because it is winning. The referendum round the globe has proved the support is there. We do know the support is there in the Punjab, despite what the Govt media tried to persuade you otherwise. There is the support for that. Amrit Pal Singh's new party, political party, is proof of that. All we need is just this catalytic event which will come, and Khalistan will become an inevitability.
And that is where we're going to be, Angus. We're going to be sitting in that cafe enjoying the launch of Satluj in Khalistan.
Indeed, we will be. And Subti Muffins, we don't often get our own Zindabads, but Angus and James, Zindabad. Way, thank you for that. But we do like our Khalistan Zindabads. B Singh says, free Punjab from terrorist India. The key word there, of course, is terrorist. Quite often, this word terrorist is used against Khalistani campaigners when we know it's complete and utter nonsense. The reason, as I said, the Khalistan movement is winning is because it is peaceful, it is democratic. There is only one part of the argument that involves terrorism, and that, of course, is the Indian state. Who is actually doing the killing? Who is doing the extrajudicial killings? It's not the Khalistan movement, it's the Indian state, as proven by what happened to Hardeep Singh Nijjar, Gurbatak Singh Panoon, Avtar Singh Kandar, Paramjit Singh in Pakistan, etc., etc. The list is long, so we do know who the terrorists are, and the terrorists always lose in the end. And then Nirmal Singh from Australia, the only solution, Khalistan, nothing less than Khalistan, the double-headed snake of Hindutva. And then Bal Singh and Khalsa Ajit Singh sign us off with Khalistan Zindabad. Khalistan, James, always our positive note to end on.
That it is. Big hearts and lots of thumbs up. We love it.
Indeed we do. And thanks very much to our audience, as always, for all your comments. Do keep them coming. Do send us links, as many of you have been doing, to some interesting stories. Thank you for all of those who have sent links. Don't forget, we don't speak Punjabi. So if you send us Punjabi links, sadly, there's not much we can do about them. But if you see anything in English, please do let us know, as many of you have done. So thanks for that, and also for the emails that we've been receiving. And of course, you can email us directly at message@satlodgetv.com if there's something you want to bring to our attention directly. But that is it for another day. Thanks so much for watching. It is a goodbye from me. It is a goodbye from James.
Stay safe, everyone.
You have, of course, been watching Perspectives. We will see you next time.